They suffered their third straight defeat of the season, a 5-0 capitulation at the hands of Manchester City. It was, it was textbook Arsenal, wasn't it? Let's speak to Ian Abrahams, who's going to discuss with us some of the talking points of the weekend's Premier League action. And we'll start with Arsenal, shall we, Ian, because it was a car crash, really.
Yeah, good morning. It was a bit of a car crash and not made any better by the fact that Spurs are top of the table with a 100% record. But, I mean, Arsenal are never going to go to City and win. It was always going to be damaged imitation. And I think now the problem is that Mikel Arteta's got a game against Norwich, which most people, I think, are perceiving as a must-win game. So it's even more pressure on this team. A game which I think they will win, but it's a game which I think that he could really well do without. But he's got to wait 2 weeks for it as well.
You talk about they must win. They're below Norwich in the table, so that's going to be actually a great game to watch. If Norwich win that game, Moose, Arteta's got to go, surely.
It's all about the process at Arsenal, and he's
process rubbish.
I know, but this is process, project. These are all words which have come into football in the last sort of 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And he's not the man in charge of this process. The people above him, especially Edu, I think he's the one that's really the one I think that might end up carrying the can for this. But Arteta really can only work with what he's got, and I know that he's identified a lot of these players, and that this is more his squad now than it was. I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago when he got, or 2 years ago when he got the job. But I just look at it. There's still a lot of players there that Arsenal fans, Kolasinac is back. They haven't been able to get rid of him. He was well known last year. Holding, Chambers, these are all players that realistically, does Mikel Arteta want in his squad if he really had the choice? Bellerin was meant to be going this summer. Xhaka was meant to be going this summer. The latter now has been given a new contract and the captaincy before he was sent off at the weekend. There's still an awful lot wrong at the Emirates, and for all the sort of surgery that has been done to the squad by Mikel Arteta in the last year and a half or so, there's still a lot more that needs to be done.
It's interesting that you say, though, that it's a philosophy, it's a project. And I understand that Arsenal are not in a situation where they can go out and spend the kind of money that Manchester City, that Manchester United, that Chelsea, even Liverpool at times have been able to spend, because they don't generate the same level of income as some of the big commercial entities in like Manchester United, like Barcelona, like Real Madrid. The stadium obviously had a drain on them for a certain number of years. That's not the case now. They want to be self-sufficient, so they're buying younger players that they can develop, sell on, make some money, and then replenish the squad. It's a longer-term project. But ultimately, while that's going on, you still got to be able to, one, stay in the Premier League. Obviously, that sounds ludicrous to say, but they are bottom at the moment. But two, you've got to make sure you're winning football matches and taking people along with you. And at the moment, they don't look like they're taking people along with them. Mikel Arteta has invested in younger players, but to say that it wasn't entirely down to him, I think sort of devolves him with a little bit of responsibility that I don't think that's correct, because he changed his job title after winning the FA Cup final in his first summer from head coach to manager, because he wanted a greater say about who comes in and out of the club and the direction of their transfer and recruitment policy. So he has to shoulder some of the blame if he wants to take on some of that responsibility.
Correct, but he's also had some enormous fires to fight at the club, and the biggest of which was Mesut Ozil and dealing with that situation. And that was a drain on the. You talk about the stadium being a drain on the club. Mesut Ozil was a drain on the club, and the whole.
Yeah, but then Moose, they compound that by giving Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang a similar contract, a similar deal, and then hiring Willian, who's coming to the end of his career, and Chelsea won't give more than a 1-year contract to, on a 3-year, 4-year deal on a huge amount of money. And he's now at the point where he's saying, look, I'll forego £20 million to get out of here.
No, you're right. They've made mistake after mistake after mistake. But are all those mistakes down to Arteta? Arteta's mistakes are obviously on the pitch on a Saturday afternoon. Is he picking the right players? How well coached are they in terms of being able to go out and execute a game plan? Those are the mistakes he's making. The mistakes in terms of players being given contracts are above his pay grade. I mean, the Ozil one was down to Ivan Gazidis. The ones you talk about since then, obviously, are still not down to, Arteta's not the one that goes to speaks to William and says, right, I'll offer you this, that, and the other. The problem is everybody else, and this is the big problem for Arsenal, everybody else is strengthening, everybody else is getting bigger and better. You know, United today are signing Cristiano Ronaldo. Spurs have managed to keep hold of Harry Kane. City have spent £100 million on Jack Grealish. Everybody else gets bigger and better, while Arsenal, at the very best, are treading water and at the very least are taking one step backwards every season. I mean, you know, there used to be a staple in the Premier League, in the Champions League every single year. You know, Arsenal would finish top 4 under Arsene Wenger. Whether you saw that as like he did as winning a trophy, I don't personally. He did. Fine, but they used to do that. Now they're out of Europe this year, and as you rightly say, if you take it the table at face value after 3 games, they're in a relegation battle and will be lucky to stay in the Premier League. Personally, I think they won't. They'll be fine. They'll end up pretty much the same sort of place they finished last year, in the middle of the table. But for a club like Arsenal to end up being in this situation whereby, you know, just to try and get into any kind of European football at the end of the season would be amazing. Is a fall from grace, which is probably too much for many fans to stomach.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods, Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.